was an attempted assassination attempt on Donald John Trump.
Why was Merrick Garland prepping for a possible, shootout? Why did agents roll up, guns at the ready?
Maybe they wanted to come in without FBI, without, DOJ, without all of that, identifying so that they could engage in deadly physical force.
Deadly force. Does that mean that Joe Biden was authorizing the FBI to if it came to that and he resisted arrest, it would be okay to kill Donald Trump?
That's what it seems.
Frank, so we're just covering this insane story that Donald Trump and other members of Congress like Marjorie Taylor Greene are claiming that the Mar-a-Lago raid was actually an assassination attempt. Trump says he escaped with his life. We know he says insane things. On the scale of insanity, where does this stop?
Yeah, and it is insane, but it's also deeply dangerous. And here's why, because what they're doing is by raising this kind of assassination fascination that I call it, they're injecting death, murder, that concept into people's minds, which is going to likely cause some mentally unstable people to consider lashing out violently, even fatally, against FBI personnel because they believe this crap. So let's get into the facts that I know a certain portion of the MAGA movement won't accept, won't believe, but here's the real deal. First, in every FBI operations order, it is required to include the DOJ deadly force policy. It's standard. And in fact, if you question whether or not that's true, I urge you to take a look at the bottom right corner of the ops order, and you'll see it's a federal form. It's got an identifying number as a federal form. That means it's a boilerplate template that agents fill in for their specific search, right? Oh, we're going to Mar-a-Lago. Here's who's on the team. Here's our radio signals, blah, blah, blah. Here's who's in charge. But then there's parts of the template, the federal form, that you can't change because it's mandated to be in there. In fact, what have we learned? We've learned that the same goddarn template was used in the consensual search of Joe Biden's places for classified information. So if it's true that the FBI was using that form to try and justify killing a former president, I guess we've got to say that is deep state stuff.
You know what's insane? What's insane to me is that two things. Number one, that it comes on the heels of the immunity request, where Sotomayor laid out that scenario about SEAL Team 6 wanting to assassinate a political rival, and would you have immunity from prosecution? And in essence, Trump's attorney said yes, because until you're impeached and removed from office, that has to be the procedure. The justice can't go after you or any other legal organization inside the executive branch or Congress. Well, Congress obviously has impeachment. So that part comes, the timing of that is crazy. In my opinion, this is just a typical Trump, a guy who needs money, a way to raise money. You know, he came out and he tweeted, I'm reading here, Joe Biden was locked and loaded, ready to take me and my family and put us in danger. So in other words, he was saying that they were going to assassinate his family, which, is Central American crazy revolution stuff, right?
Let's not muddy things up with the facts, but you and I know that the FBI waited to execute this warrant until Trump and his family were gone. They weren't there. Trump was 1,000 miles away. And by the way, for those saying, oh, well, even if it's standard language, it shouldn't have been in this search. This is a special search. This is a former president of the United States. And you guys went in without coordinating with Secret Service and someone could have been killed. Not true. Not true at all. The DOJ has actually said there was coordination. There's evidence of the phone calls at a senior level to the Secret Service telling them we're coming. And to the Trump team, Trump had one of his lawyers show up for the search. So all of that is nonsense. I'm telling you from 25 years of experience in the FBI, I don't believe I've ever seen an ops order that didn't have the mandatory DOJ policy. I've signed off on hundreds of them, been on many of them, and that is the real deal. And I want to address the people who say that there's something else should have happened, that day, that this is a unique search. And of course it's an unprecedented search of a former president. But what is the alternative here? Are you suggesting that agents should have been unarmed that day? That the FBI should have changed its deadly force policy that day? Do you know how many searches I'm aware of from my career where agents have been shot and or killed because they did something different or treated something as a lower risk that day and weren't vigilant? In fact, in the one case that I know of in my career where agents actually acquiesced to not carrying weapons during a very strange arrest inside a prison of a corrections officer, guess who the only person was who was armed? The corrections officer who shot and killed the DOJ IG agent and wounded his partner.
I
So
detect
you don't go
emotion
on
in
these
your
operations.
yeah. The emotion in your voice is understandable for anybody that has any connection to law enforcement and understands the dangers of going through a door when you don't know what's on the other side, and you have crazy proclamations like this. I used to, I say hang out, but I knew him because we worked in the same town, G. Gordon Liddy, when he was doing radio. And he used to frighten me, but he totally think the Watergate break-in was justified, and he would go down this crazy list of unconstitutional reasons that why it should have happened. But I think in some ways what Trump is saying frightens me more, because he's trying to get. I mean, again, what happened on January the 6th when he sent thousands of people to the Capitol could have gone a lot further south. We caught a break. I think we really did. And there's some of the people inside the Capitol that got people out, and we heard from I believe his name is Mike Ziegler, who was the deputy in chief in the Situation Room, who said that how close Mike Pence came to dying. If in fact people in the Trump organization and their followers believe that Biden is really capable of this, that amps it up in effect if Trump loses in the fall, and their reaction after that could easily be violent. And I have tapes of 20 minutes of Trump saying that violence should happen to his political enemies. What happens after something like this? Or is this a one-off, but actually combines to all the other rhetoric that he uses to create this idea that people have to take justice into their own hands?
We're going to hear this particular conspiracy theory, and along with all the others, right up through November. I can guarantee you. And by the way, that's why Jack Smith, special counsel, has now filed with the court down in Florida, Judge Cannon, and said, I'm requesting a gag order right now because this nonsense about assassination is going to get a federal agent killed. And that's where we are at this. And conversely, the Trump team has filed and said, since it appears that the government was trying to kill me, this case needs to be dropped. So, here we are, right? And again, I've been associated with searches and arrests. I have a lot of people on social media saying, what was the threat that day? Come on. You know what? We've had situations where you show up at a business and some non-involved employee thinks you're coming for him because he's got a warrant, and he opens fire on you thinking you're there for him. I've seen a wife shoot and kill an FBI agent from upstairs because they were approaching her husband. So you never know what the threat is, but we do know one thing. The threat now is coming directly from Trump, and it's going to get somebody hurt.
Let me ask you a question. Do the attorneys for Trump have a responsibility to not be part of something they know is false? I mean, Todd Blanche and Chris Kise are part of this making this case. They did the filings saying that they believe that these scenarios pose a threat to their client. I mean, can an attorney be taken? Can the bar deal with something like that?
You raise a really great point, which is they are officers of the court, and they are required to not knowingly put forth fabrication or falsehood. And you are right. If Judge Cannon had half a brain, she would be saying, you proved this. You proved to me that DOJ was trying to kill and assassinate. You proved to me that this was some uniquely different order than the FBI does every day around the country. That's what she should be doing.
Obviously, the FBI and Chris Wray have been, ever since Trump decided he would invent this thing called the deep state, where you can get these stories and people can obviously, Facebook won't put them up anymore. Twitter's in between. YouTube is slow to do it. So it has become a little harder for people to get hold of these. But again, I'm reading a story today that's all over the place about, Trump saying that the FBI came to Mar-a-Lago to assassinate him. And you just wonder if this is the kind of rhetoric he's saying while he's under trial. What will he say if he's unleashed, if he should win? And assuming that this trial, let's say this trial, current hush money trial, doesn't put him in prison, and I'm beginning to think it won't. I'm beginning to feel like it's going to be a hung jury. But even if they convict him, sentencing, how long could sentencing take?
Oh, we may see sentencing scheduled not until till the election, till after the election. It's quite possible.
And then the appeal and all that other stuff, right? So, and once he becomes president, then of course he can't stop again, going back to what the immunity case was before the Supreme Court, and what they're still talking about right now, Georgia can indict a sitting president, and they can't get a case. And so, and then, of course, they're dealing with the same thing with Willis and trying to determine, where that case is going to move forward. And then, of course, the case of the documents. And January 6th, if he became president, he would just tell justice to stick it in their pocket, right?
Yeah, for sure. And of course, he'd clean house at DOJ and FBI. And what concerns me is what would he do down to the rank and file? Of course, the leadership's going to go. But, what do you do with the career person who is trying to get to retirement and do their job? He's claiming people around him are claiming he's going to do away with civil service protections, fire people at will, give loyalty tests. It's a mess. And I have to also point out, we're in a dilemma here because the MAGA crowd loves you and me and everyone else pushing back on this falsehood about the assassination nonsense, right? Yeah. They eat this up. This is in part what they want to do. This is called a twofer. They get 2 for 1. They rile up their own base with falsehoods, and they get us exercised about this so that we're giving the story more oxygen, even as we try to inject the truth. It's a no-win for everybody.
Well, it's funny because, we had Adam Kinzinger on, frankly, 2 weeks ago. And Adam said something that former congressman, as you guys know, ran the January 6th committee along with Liz Cheney, and was primaried out by MAGA. He had something to say that I thought was really interesting. He says, don't show the side of Trump that he wants you to see, of the guy that's in charge and that could, wreck the entire deep state or America or whatever. Say instead the truth, that he's a coward, and all throughout his history, he's been a coward. He's avoided. He's from if you go back and look at everything back to the bone spurs, and his entire adult life has been running away from justice. Yeah. He's simply
the big tough guy, the strong leader, Bone Spurs, who has to lie for a living in order to get any traction. He's lying again. And I tell people, look, don't take my word for it. If you want to discount 25 years of experience in the Bureau about ops orders, that's fine. Go look it up yourself. Are you capable of independent research yourself, or do you want to just get shoveled and swallow whole everything that the far right is giving you? Go find out yourself. Go look at the DOJ form. Go look at an FBI ops order. You can do it. It's there.
I can't recall her name now, but the woman who is a legal counsel and speaks on Fox for Trump was saying, she goes, can't we move this case in New York to a federal court because it's so unfair that he's in New York? And I'm like, did you go to law school or what? But
I'll note that we have a federal court in DC that's trying to hold them accountable, and they're complaining about a DC jury.
Yeah, it is. It's, with the latest on Judge Alito and what we know about Ginny Thomas and their actions, obviously the Supreme Court has some serious issues to deal with. And I'm sure, in my opinion, the person that's probably most upset by all this is Roberts. Roberts seems to be a guy that longs for the days gone by. Even though he has voted with the majority, and he voted with the majority in Dobbs, which overturned Roe v. Wade. It seemes to me that this has to bother him, and this loss of decorum.
He does seem reasonable, Chip, but what I keep coming back to? First of all, he seems wholly incapable of controlling his justices. He can't, I don't see a strong leader there. But I keep coming back to, remember the so-called investigation into the leaking of the Dobbs decision? So here's a guy who wants to protect the integrity of the court. What does he do? It's an inside investigation. I'll give it to the lady who's the marshal of the court, and by the way, no investigative experience. She came out of the military, and I'll let her look into it. Oh, okay. Did you refer it to the FBI because it's a cyber hack? Maybe it's a leak of a government document. No, no. Did you really sit down and interview each of the justices? No, we did have a vibrant discussion as a group, though. Oh, okay. So that's not an investigation. So I question whether Roberts really gives a damn about protecting the integrity of the court versus protecting the justices.
If you're an FBI agent today, obviously, again, this is sent out, so everything you do will look like it's some part of some sort of conspiracy against Trump. But the FBI, obviously, again, they may have to. I mean, this is not a federal case in New York, obviously, but they're obviously still investigating involved in the documents case. They're still investigating on January 6th in the insurrection. There's so much there. There's so much there that you look at that and say this would be, especially the documents case, seems like a slam dunk. I mean, you got people saying that Trump told them to burn documents or to remove them from the property, and it seems to me like, I mean, that's just a slam dunk. And the canon is obviously delaying it, hoping it, can't go to trial before the election, and that looks like it's going to happen. But what do we take away from this case moving forward? In that the idea that Trump can declare that they came to assassinate him. You got Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I haven't seen anybody else latch onto this, any other people in Congress, because it's so insane. But if you're an FBI agent and you're in federal law enforcement now, does this stick in your head?
Oh, God. Look, for the first time in history, Chip, the FBI has had to open a unit at headquarters doing nothing but trying to suppress threats against FBI personnel and their families. That's never happened before. So yes, of course, when you're on an arrest or a search, you've got to be careful about your security, of course. But now, coming to work, whether there's a sniper that's going to ambush you, as the guy did at the Atlanta field office, is going to try and piggyback through the gate and do harm. Some administrative clerk is going to show up on a Tuesday morning and with coffee in one hand, steering wheel in the other, and get shot at the entrance. This is stuff we did not ever have to think about. And now operational security is every single day at every one of the field offices around the United States.
When I first started in talk radio, I was in Washington, D.C. at WMAL. And in my first 5 years, I had everything from the Atlanta bombings. That guy later went on to shoot a doctor who performed abortions. And we also, we had Oklahoma City. Those seemed to me like outliers at the time. But I have this horrible feeling that in the next 4 or 5 years, these could become more commonplace because of the rhetoric is so amped up. And I got to think that the FBI is preparing for that. But what will this FBI look like in a year from now, if in fact Trump is somehow elected?
Yeah, I mean, we can work through that grim scenario with, name your scary FBI director. I don't know, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Kash Patel, who's going to be there. And then this, look through the whole system. So who prosecutes FBI cases? U.S. attorney. Who appoints U.S. attorneys? The president, right? And so now imagine the FBI in a field office near you. They've taken a loyalty pledge to Trump. Maybe the head of the office has had to do that. To a U.S. attorney who's taken a loyalty pledge to Trump. And he says, I have an espionage case against Russia. And the U.S. attorney says, yeah, we're not doing Russia today. Sorry. I have a corruption case against the Republican governor here in the state. No, that's not happening. Declined. That's the kind of thing we're looking at.